Welcome to 10-5, the official podcast of the OPP Association. I am one of your co-hosts. My name is Scott Mills.
And I'm Emily Brown, and we are the Strategic Communications Coordinators for the OPP Association, and your host for the 10-5 podcast. For those of you who are new to our podcast, the OPP Association is the sole bargaining agent for the close to 10,000 members of the Ontario Provincial Police in Canada. Our members are our focus and our strength, and we aim to provide important information to our members and the public about matters that affect policing in the province of Ontario.
Today our guests are two OPP provincial constables from the Kenora detachment to talk about something they call GPSU, which in a nutshell is the obtaining, analyzing, and investigating of CCTV video in cooperation with a number of community partners to prevent and solve crime in the city of Kenora, Ontario. Welcome Sandra Mulland and Daryl Clark to the 10-5 podcast.
Thanks for having us. Looking forward to having this conversation.
So Sandra, let's start off with you. We like to get to know our guests first, so would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I was actually, before I became a police officer, was a nurse for 18 years. And then in 2008, I changed my career choice and joined the OPP. So I've been working with the OPP in Kenora since 2008. I was diagnosed with lupus and for several years now, and have been working with that. And I've been able to work the road, just doing my job as normal up until the last few years, which my health changed, which is the reason why I'm now accommodated.
We're going to get back to exactly what this unique and effective unit actually does and how they do it in a moment. And it's quite interesting that Sandra, shared openly there that she's an accommodated officer. So she's no longer kind of working directly on the road, answering calls and things like that, but very much making a difference. And Daryl, I want to turn it over to you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Happy to be here, and thanks again for the invitation. I had started with the OPP in Dryden as a cadet in 2005. Before that, I'd worked in Ontario Clean Water Agency. I was a paper maker, worked for the pipeline, went to school for engineering. I started my career in Ignace, worked there for 6 years, which is actually my hometown. It was an interesting and unique opportunity. I moved to Kenora in 2012, became a TCI, a SACO. In 2017, I joined the street crime unit. As part of that unit, our detachment commander had asked us to start a new program in the city to deal with our many missing youths that we had. We had 600 to 700 calls per year dealing with missing youth that were in care. We started a youth crisis and engagement team, myself and another officer, Scott Chalkley. We did that for years, and we uncovered quite a few criminal activities involving the youth being victimized, and we were pretty successful in reducing the number of missings and therefore victimization. In saying that, in 2019, I was diagnosed with PTSD and had to take a little bit of a break from work. So I spent 2 years at home just recovering and working on just trying to get back and having a bit of a normal life again. So I came back in October 2021, I believe, was asked if I would like to be part of this new GPSU unit and assist with following up with occurrences for the officers on the road because they were getting swamped and not able to do all the follow-up that was required for us to complete proper and complete investigations. So that was part of my job, and then it became more of the video portion, as well as I was assigned to start up the warrant project as well as the offender management and apprehension program here in Kenora again.
Well, congratulations to both of you. It's nice to see that you're both back to work and making a difference in your community. And we're happy to be able to share your stories here on the podcast.
You're welcome. It's not always easy to share with others, especially when you're accommodated, the reasons why, especially if outwardly you look fine. There's usually a lot of questions.
Like Sandra said, it's not always easy to publicly talk about this stuff. I think the more we can talk about it, the more we can make a difference in others. And I know people have reached out to me and said, thank you for speaking about this. To me, it really helped in my situation.
Yeah, I've got so much respect for both of you for, sharing what you have here about your situations personally. And I'm you guys are making a difference. When I was talking with Sandra about this, everything you're doing up there, the world has changed with CCTV and the way we collect evidence and everything like that. And I think you guys are, breaking ground with what you're doing. You're making more than a difference here, and we're gonna get into exactly what difference you're making here. So, Sandra, over to you. I was wondering if maybe you can share with us some of the key takeaways about your unit.
So, I think for me, and I didn't really elaborate initially, but my diagnosis of lupus, it has affected my joints in my right hand, which is my dominant hand, and the hand that I would have used while on the road for my pistol. And as a result of that, my joints are somewhat deformed now, to be honest, and I can't carry my gun. And that is the reason why I'm not on the road any longer. And I hid that fact for a few years because I didn't want to lose my gun. I wanted to still work on the road. It's something that I enjoy doing. But it came down to a point where I had to make a personal decision of safety. And it wasn't safe really anymore. So back in 2021, I was at home trying to figure out what I was going to do with my career. This is not how I figured my career was going to go. Let's be honest, right? I had plans to finish my career on the road, doing what I love to do, and now I had to make a decision. So I had a very candid conversation with my staff sergeant. I think Daryl would agree. He's been wonderful. He was open immediately when I had to share with him what my struggles were. And what had happened here in Kenora at the time is we had another officer who already was back at work and had been accommodated. And he was starting to get too busy and had just really within 24 hours almost had gone to our staff sergeant and said, I need some help. And I happened to phone the next day and said, I need to come back to work, but I don't know what to do. So our staff sergeant sat down with me and we had a good discussion as to where do you see yourself? What do you want to do? What were your expectations? How did you see your career? Where do you want to go from here? What are your strengths? Those kinds of things. And let's see what we can do to have you come back to work in a meaningful way. And it is very true. That's the conversation that we had. And it just so happened that this other accommodated officer needed the help. And our staff sergeant said, I have an opportunity for you. I think you'll be great in there. And so with me joining this other officer, now there was two of us. And the other officer was very happy to see that he had some help. And then Daryl came back a couple of months after me, and he joined with us. So we were becoming our own little unit, really, if you will. And it was called the GPSU, which stands for General Patrol Support Unit. And what our staff sergeant allowed us to do was to make the unit something special for us that was meaningful for us, but also was assisting the officers on the road. Ultimately, that was our goal. We can't work the road anymore in the same capacity, but we still want to be beneficial and helpful. So one of the aspects of the job that I now do is, I'll speak specifically for me. Daryl can speak for Miss Daryl's job's a little bit different than mine. So one of the things that I do is we do video evidence, and a little background of that. So many years ago, I think back actually in 2009, the city of Kenora had put security cameras throughout the city. Those amount of cameras have grown substantially since 2009. And what would happen generally, if an incident occurred where we knew that there was a camera, just say downtown Kenora, an officer would then go to the city hall, request the video, and then they would sometimes it would take a week to get it. So they'd send messages to other officers. If you're working this day, can you go over to the city hall, pick up the video, and so on and so forth. The video, however, that we would retrieve, oftentimes, if it was only a 5-minute portion that we really needed, we'd get an entire weekend. Because the city hall staff, they didn't know, they're not trained investigators. They wouldn't know what portion that they would really need. So they would just give us an entire weekend. But an officer would then have to go through and filter through all of that information. So the city decided that they weren't going to do it anymore. They said, we're not doing it anymore. It was becoming too much for them. So the clerics that worked at the city hall, they have their regular jobs. They were doing this on the side, and it was just too much for them. So they had decided they weren't going to do that anymore. As a result, our staff sergeant, working with the city, was able to get remote access to the cameras right into our detachment. So officers could then go right here into detachment and look up the city cameras and see the footage that was required. That even got busy. And so what they did was one of the accommodated officers started looking at that video. But then, like I said, he got too busy, so then I came in. What's happened since then, and that was in 2021, is just with the city cameras alone, we don't really say that we have just say 400 cameras. We will say things like we have 600-700 camera views. One camera may have 4 different angles on an intersection, just say. So we have the city cameras, but also we now have the Catholic School Board. We also have a lot of our local businesses that have granted us access. We have the Kenora District Services Board, all of their low-income and supportive housing units. We have a ton of cameras now, and we have more coming. And what I've discovered with a lot of our partners and our stakeholders within our communities, when they've discovered that, the OPP can do this in Kenora, well, we're going to give you access to our cameras too, because sometimes they don't even know how to get into their cameras, actually. They have their security system set, but they don't even know how to access it. So how it works, officers will attend a call for service. If they see that there's a requirement for CCTV in the area, they will send a task to our unit. We'll look that task up, and then we can go into the appropriate cameras, download the footage, and then upload it to DEMS so it can be scoped for court. It's saved a lot of opportunity for the officers to have to be running around town looking up cameras. And another thing, too, is we have built relationships with everybody in town now. So we know who's got cameras, who doesn't. We know who to contact, who the IT person is for that particular business, etc. It's running pretty smoothly. However, that's only one aspect of what we do. We support the front line, so it's really whatever they need. And I don't just do video. I still lay charges. If motor vehicle collisions come in, but officers don't have to attend, I'll take those. There's several things that we actually do. I don't lay the charges that I did in the past. However, I still do lay charges, and I like it because it keeps me fresh, and it keeps me up to date on how we do things. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
That's great. Well, thank you. Now, I noticed the term cam safe in our discussions. And so before we even kick into that term, Daryl, can you explain what cam safe is?
Yes, CamSafe is a program that started in Southern Ontario. Sorry, the service that started it escapes me at the moment. Yes, Belleville, sorry. So with the theme of us collecting CCTV security video, this CamSafe program was approved by the OPP through the Community Safety Services, and a package was sent out for detachments to implement. So all it is a computer program. The general public or businesses can go on. They can log into onto their profile, register their cameras. They can take screenshots to show what they show. From that, during investigations, police officers can click on an area and see who has cameras and what they may see. The person doesn't always have to show screenshots, but their contact information in. And from that, we can get some investigative leads. If there's a serious incident, we can contact the person right away and possibly obtain footage, kidnappings or major assaults or stuff like that their cameras may catch. It's a completely voluntary program. People can log in, register, and they can deregister, I guess, at any point. And it's just another tool for us. The program allows us to map where cameras are and provide a list of people that have the cameras, and we can contact them should we need to possibly get photos or video of the area. And it's helped in the past, just even vehicles driving by the area.
So how does this all work in Kenora with the team of accommodated officers?
Officers respond to calls for service. They may deem it necessary to get some CCTV footage, whether it's an impaired or a collision or a major assault, even a break and enter. They either task us, or if there's something emergent that's going on in the city itself. We've had thefts where people have walked out of stores with some very expensive equipment, TVs, stereos. I've been able to get online, go to the camera that's nearest to that area, see that the person has run out of the store, hid under a set of steps. The officers are driving around looking for this person, and I can direct them. I have actually directed them to the area where the suspect was, and we've recovered the property within minutes of a theft, whereas they were hiding, they'd hide out, and we'd never see them again, or the property. But it's worked well in us recovering lots of stolen property and solving lots of crime, actually.
I would imagine, I want to put this one over to Sandra, you probably have actually kind of discovered that some evidence that, some complaints that you might be getting called into the police are even unfounded. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so we've had several incidents where a call will come in that somebody's being assaulted or had been assaulted, where they've wound up at the hospital. Can you go back, look at the video and see what happened? It's on this street, this corner, that kind of thing. And then we look and no, there was no assault there. And that person actually, this was one incident where the person was actually hitting his own head against a wall of a building, which caused his injuries. But even just recently, there was somebody who was parked on Main Street saying that he had a theft from inside his motor vehicle, and it was a rare card of some sort. So I looked, and it was unfounded. Nobody even went near his vehicle. So these are all good for the investigation. We've had times too where people have walked out of the hospital when they weren't supposed to, and the hospital will call that in right away, and we'll jump on the video cameras right away, follow the person. We know roughly when they left and what they were wearing. We can follow them, and we've been able to locate them and direct officers to where they are, and they've been able to pick them up and bring them back to the hospital. We've had missing person cases, same idea, but we've also done video requests for other police services, and as far as Edmonton even. So it's been pretty rewarding.
Daryl, you kind of touched upon this when you were talking before, but I understand you've been able to assist other police services in your area. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yes, I think we all have assisted other police services. Mike in particular has helped Winnipeg Police Service with a kidnapping investigation. We've assisted Thunder Bay Police Service with missing persons, possible sightings in Kenora, which turned out not to be the case. The person was a local person, and we were able to identify that the sighting was actually one of our local people, not the missing person from Thunder Bay.
It's good. Sounds like you've been pretty productive. I got a quick question here for Sandra. What was how did you end up helping Edmonton Police Service all the way from Kenora?
I believe that incident, that was quite a while ago, but I believe that incident was a missing person.
Yeah, the missing person investigations, they can surely take up a lot of staff time and a lot of investigative time, and anything that can be helpful is definitely welcome. So
I find that since the inception of our unit as a whole, is we have 6 officers in this unit now. We're all accommodated for different reasons. Our skills and abilities are also independent of one another. But our staff sergeant has been able to sit down with each and every person and have that really a meaningful conversation. I think that's what's really important that needs to be mentioned. Instead of having somebody who maybe wants to come back to work just saying, well, you're going to go and you're doing this. Our staff sergeant actually sat us down and said, okay, what do you want to do? Where do you see yourself? What can we do? And then let's put that together with what your skills and abilities are and see if we can place you somewhere. And he's done that with us, and we all like coming to work. I don't feel that, and Daryl can certainly speak for himself, but I don't feel that we are looked at any differently in the office than we were before. I believe there's an atmosphere of mutual respect with the other officers. And we get either emails or they'll come right into our office. They'll sit down and talk. Okay, I need some help. Sometimes if they're working and something's happened, which I had just a few weeks ago, an officer came in and said, I just got this call. There's a theft of a motor vehicle. Something seems a little hinky with it. Can you look at the video? And we looked at it together right there and discovered that it wasn't whatever the call was initially. So, but I do find that there is a lot of respect within the detachment. And I think we are making a difference. And I'll judge that by we get a lot of thank yous. And we get told we're appreciated. I think that's really important. When you've been off for a long time and you're trying to come back, it's difficult.
It's this is a really it's good to know. I was going to ask you there, Sandra, about kind of what's some of the human resources behind the whole thing, but you've really well explained it really well, and kudos to your staff sergeant for that work that they're doing in the background too. It's really nice to hear a good news story. Policing is not pretty at times, as we all know. So, to have you guys out there making a difference is great. I understand you even get called in now, and there's even overtime sometimes. So,
yep, there is. We get called in. Well, we actually all work. I think this is important too. Our back to work plans are all different. They're tailored individually to each of us. And we do work different shifts. We don't just work Monday to Friday, 8 to 4 or whatever. I work the 5-4 split, and I work weekends, and I work 12-hour days. And but Daryl, he does a different shift. But that's through our work plan that we've discussed with our staff sergeant to figure out what's going to work. But the nice thing about the way our schedules are is that there is coverage 7 days a week for our road officers, which is ultimately we are a team, but we are trying to help those on the road we're trying to save them time from things that they had to do before so that they can get back to the road and do what they need to do. And if we can take a little bit of that off of their plates, then I think that that's a success too.
That's a great explanation, really. I'm glad that we went into that a little bit. So maybe I'll kick it over to you, Daryl. What are some of the other duties that you perform?
My situation is a bit different than Sandra's. I do have full use of force. I'm able to get out and about. I've made arrests when I'm come across things. So I'm in a bit of a different situation, but also accommodated in for what works for me and also works for the detachment, I guess. I don't feel like I'm a broken toy sitting in the corner, I guess, and doing meaningless work. I like Sandra said, I really enjoy coming to work every day, which is something that I had trouble doing before I was off. So some of the other duties I have are, like I said, I do video collection. I go out and about. We talk to businesses. I do take statements for officers that were unable to grab what they needed, or if I come across somebody that's maybe seen something during an investigation that we're looking into, I do some canvassing. I also have been asked to look into or take on the offender management and apprehension program and our warrants. We did our project return, which resulted in actually our identifying some pretty bad people that were out and about, and us able to locate, and with the assistance of the crime unit, getting a person back before our courts, and actually ultimately getting a conviction on the person for a firearms offense, which was pretty satisfying in itself. Part of the OMAP program, I work really closely actually with court officers too, because we have on a daily basis 5 courts going on at our courthouse here in Kenora. We have our daily overnight courts. So keeping track of who's in and out of court and what their conditions are is it's a full-time experience, but keeping track of our offenders, it is a full-time job. But I was given the opportunity, I guess, as I think of myself as a very organized person and like to have some structure and things in place to make life easier, make your job easier. So I was given opportunities to come up with my own ideas, implement some stuff through the detachment that's helped offenders get arrested, for us to keep track of offenders. And it's meaningful work. It's not something that's, like I said, I'm not just sitting in the corner doing stuff I don't like. It's enjoyable. I'm having fun.
Thanks for doing all that, Daryl. Sandra was telling me I've also gone into the schools sometimes, local college, and the Police Foundations course, and shared your experiences there. So thanks for doing that. And I'm going to throw it over here to Sandra. You mentioned even some more duties that you're involved with. Can you explain to us what PMR is? It's pretty interesting.
I think for most officers who may be listening to this, they'll know what the PMR is. It's for our prisoner recording, and basically it's the cell area at detachment. So each detachment will have their PMR officers. That has to be approved prior. But I think the natural fit was because we were already doing our CCTV stuff and everything that we do with the current positions that we're in, PMR just came naturally. So we do the prisoner recordings and the interviews. If officers don't have the time to download interviews that they've done, then we will do that for the crime unit, for officers on the road, sometimes even SIU. It is part of the job. So we will download that footage and then provide it. If it has to go to DEMS, we'll put it up on DEMS. If it has to go to somewhere else, then we'll make sure it gets to where it needs to go. And then officers don't have to worry about that either.
When we're talking about surveillance, I would imagine some of our listeners right away you associate surveillance with privacy issues. And that is a big deal. It's a hot topic nowadays. So, Daryl, have you run into any issues with that?
I think it's important for us to note that we don't conduct surveillance. We're not on our CCTV systems daily just watching. We follow MFIPA, the Municipal Freedom of Information Act. The City of Kenora identifies on their website that they have cameras and identify locations. Even the private businesses identify that they have cameras, which is part of what they have to do. We have to keep track of all of our access to the CCTV system. So if we're on it, we keep track of it, why we were there. And we do have to go to court and testify to it as to why we collected the video we did. And under the Municipal Freedom of Information Act, there's a section that stipulates that police can access cameras for a police purpose, and that allows us to gain access for ongoing investigations. It's for the public safety, which is always and to prevent crime and solve crime. We work under MFIPA, but we're also police officers at the end of the day. We review our video and do a complete investigation. We're trained officers. I've been on for almost 20 years, and Sandra for 17, and we come with some skills and lots of observation skills, I guess, and experience, and we review video, and we're able to identify suspects, areas that are a problem, direct our officers to where we're seeing the most activity, actually, during our investigations. And we've come across, during our investigations, other assaults that have happened that the person was unaware where it happened, and we've accidentally stumbled across it looking into a different investigation, which I guess it's a bonus. And we're able to solve crimes, identify suspects, or areas that are needing attention. We're seeing lots of activity in an area, or when we're looking at events. It's really a great tool for us at the detachment. I know our property crime dropped, or I guess the crime didn't drop. The solvable break and enters and stuff that happened downtown increased, and we were able to get more people charged and convicted.
It's almost like you guys are doing a labor of love now, and it's so welcoming to hear. I'm sure the people in the community don't even know a lot of what you're doing behind the scenes to help keep the community safe. So it's a great work that you're all doing. It's there is a lot of accountability to it as police officers. Police officers have a lot of accountability and oversight, and it's great to see that you've got all the policies in place to do this properly and document it properly. And Sandra, I've got another question here for you, because you did mention about both of you mentioned that you lay charges sometimes with the information that you're attaining. And I know you're talking about something that happened up in Dryden. You were able to help out. I was wondering if maybe you could kind of comment on that. I know you guys are getting like 75 requests a month. Like that's a lot of work. Do you have anything to say on that?
Well, the incident in Dryden that I'm speaking about was to do with a theft from a local business. And although the officer didn't actually reach out to me directly, we had an incident of similar nature here in Kenora. So what I did was I looked up the incident to see if there was any other incidents in Northwest region that were similar. And I came across the incident that had happened a few hours earlier in Dryden. As a result, I looked up that report and was able to send an email to the officer who was investigating that incident and link them together and provided pictures of the suspect vehicle. So we've had a couple of issues, and I think this is actually predominantly throughout the entire province, really, but we've had a lot of thefts from drugstores. And last summer, we had a theft from our local Shoppers Drug Mart, and I think it was just under $10,000 worth of perfumes and other products that were stolen. So I did get a request to look up that video. I did look up the video, and I was able to identify the vehicle and a partial plate, which we were then able to discover who the owner of the vehicle was from Southern Ontario. And they had been doing this all across the province. So that was, I believe it happened maybe in June or July, but they had just come to Canada in March, actually. They were brand new to Canada. So CBSA then was made aware of the situation and so on and so forth. But we've had a similar incident. That's the one I was talking about with Dryden. Very similar in nature, different people. But I was able to again take screenshots of the vehicle and forward that to the officer in Dryden. So we do kind of look for similarities in crimes too, to see if we can assist another community. And that's just part of just digging, which we like to do because we're trained investigators ultimately. And we just want to solve the crime, generally speaking.
Very interesting. You both have really given I didn't know a ton of the information that you've shared today. So thank you so much. On the lighter side, we tend to have this segment just to probe a little bit and kind of find out from our guests what their 3 wishes would be. You never know who's listening, and it really can be anything. It can be work related, it can be personal, whatever you feel like expressing for some positive change. So Daryl, let's start with you. Do you have 3 wishes you'd like to share?
I think for me, having that conversation with my staff sergeant, and I wasn't told exactly what my job was. We worked together and kind of developed this program for, there's 6 of us. Not all of us do the same thing in this unit. We've developed this program to assist the front line, but also assist us, the city, the detachment, in solving crime and having public safety. And I get to do a job I started 20 years ago and still investigates things, still go to court. And I hope that if whoever's listening, there's meaningful work, there's jobs we can do. I love the investigation part of it, and I was worried I wasn't going to be able to do it again, and coming back and being able to contribute again has just helped me so much, and I hope everybody else can get that opportunity too.
That's a great wish, Daryl. Do you have any more, or do you want to leave it at 1? Because I think that's quite a statement that you've just made. Everybody wants to be productive, and I think that sometimes is forgotten along the way in the return to work process.
Yeah, I think I'll just leave it as that.
All right. Well, Sandra, you can have any wishes for change here. 1, 2, 3, if you want to keep going. And just before we get to that on Sandra, Heidi Strutzenberger, I need to say a thank you on here to Heidi for connecting us. She has been great behind the scenes trying to find people that are doing really interesting, good things and would like to talk about it. So thank you, Heidi. And this was very much a worthwhile topic to discuss here. So any wishes for you, Sandra?
I don't know if I have any maybe wishes per se, but some takeaways perhaps that I try to find a challenge in everything that I do in a given day. And I'm not afraid to fail, which that's been a learning curve for me. So don't be afraid to fail. It happens. Life happens when we least expect it. And it doesn't always go, the journey is not always what we anticipate. Things do change, but have fun trying to do something new every day. That's what I've been trying to do, and I feel like I am making accomplishments, and it is leading to payoffs. And I can see that when we're thanked by the officers that we work with. and from business employees as well. We had an incident where, I just want to share this, we had an incident where a local business person had their business broken into, and 12 different people went in at different times throughout the night and stole things out of their store. This was a road officer who attended, and that officer came to me and asked if I could assist, and I said yes, I could. We went through all of the video, discovered who the 12 people were. It was going to be huge, as they were all to be charged. And I told that officer, I'll do it. Just give it to me and I'll take care of it for you. So I laid all of those charges, did all the briefs, handed it in. And he said to me later, thank you so much. I would never have had the time to do all of that. And that's why I come to work every day, to make a difference for the officers that I work with. So really, if there is any kind of wishes, I hope that anybody out there listening who's in the same situation as me, I have to say too, I had a really hard time coming back to work initially, knowing that I couldn't carry my gun anymore. And I had many people say to me, Sandra, a gun does not make you a police officer. So get that out of your head. But I had a hard time, and I think maybe for me it was because I correlated carrying my weapon with my ability to do my job. So having said that, I don't feel that way anymore. And so if anybody out there is in the same position that I was in, I hope that you can have a meaningful conversation with your staff sergeants or your commanders at your detachments and work together to come to some kind of workplace, a job or role that you can do, that you can feel that you're still making an impact on your communities that you serve and to the officers that you work with.
Well, thank you again both for taking the time to come and chat with us. If you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button on the podcasting platform of your choice. A new episode drops every other Friday morning. We're always looking for ideas and guests, so if you have any ideas, please email us at communications@oppa.ca. Until next time, thanks for listening and stay safe.